Hello and welcome, F5 community. I'm Aubrey King with DevCentral, and today is February 1st, 2023, the day in which we release our quarterly security notifications. In November of 2021, F5 began a series of quarterly security notifications so that we could make it a little bit easier for our customers to kind of find the time to transition to any new patching that they might need to do in order to just make every bit of the process a little bit easier. So once per quarter, we have a specific date, and then our customers can, months in advance, put in change windows and such. Now, I'm going to bring on Aaron Brailsford from the Security Incident Response Team to walk through all of the CVE disclosures that we've got for you today. But before I do, I just wanted to welcome everybody that is listening today from the F5 corporate YouTube and LinkedIn. Welcome. Glad to have you. Without further ado, I guess I would like to bring on Aaron Brailsford. How are you today, Aaron?
Hey, Aubrey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being on. It's great to have you. I couldn't do this on my own.
No problem.
That said, I know you've got quite a bit to get to, and I know the community is very anxious to hear about what's going on. So what I'd like to do is have you present the PowerPoint presentation that we went through in our video that's out on YouTube already. It's been out for approximately an hour. And if you are tuned in live to this live stream, think about any questions or comments that you might have for Aaron and myself. It looks like there are a number of people that are already chiming in the chat, and you can find that on both LinkedIn as well as YouTube. Okay, well, with that in mind, let's kind of get started. I'm going to bring up Aaron, and please, Aaron, take it away.
Thank you. So, like you say, Aubrey, this is the February 2023 QSN, one of regularly scheduled quarterly security notifications. There are, if I could click the button, 17 issues that we just disclosed. The disclosure date officially is 7 a.m. PDT today, so a little over an hour ago or thereabouts. The good news is there are no critical vulnerabilities in this disclosure. There are 2 external researcher reported issues. The impacts are to Big IP, Big IQ, Next SPK, F5OS, and APM clients. But there's no impact to any of our other products or to F5 services like distributed cloud services, Threat Stack, Silverline, and so on. As you said, this is a regular cadence, and so to prepare everybody, with each QSN, we announce the date of the next QSN. The next one will be May the 3rd, 2023. If we dive into those issues just a little bit, now bear in mind that the counts here won't necessarily line up because some of these issues affect more than one product. And indeed, one of these issues has more than one type. But we have 13 highs and 4 mediums. Mostly the impact here is to Big IP. And mostly, as we typically see, most of these are denial of service type vulnerabilities where an attacker can cause some daemon on the Big IP to crash and restart. A couple of these are data plane issues, so they cause TMM to crash and restart. Some of these are control plane issues where they would cause one of the control plane daemons, like iControl SOAP, to crash and restart. And typically the control plane stuff is authenticated. Obviously, data plane stuff tends to be unauthenticated. The interesting ones to call out, I think, one of those denial of service is also the remote command execution. It's also the iControl SOAP issue that was reported to us by Rapid7. That remote command execution is, at this point in time, a theoretical risk. It's not been proven. We believe it might be possible, but nobody has a working proof of concept. Right now, what you can do is cause a denial of service and crash the iControl SOAP daemon. That is authenticated, so guest user and above, you need some credentials, and obviously you need access to iControl SOAP, which After our previous disclosure, I think probably most people will have taken steps to restrict access to iControl SOAP. So the impact to there is probably relatively minor. I'll come back to that one again in a second. The other interesting ones, I think, for me, that I'd like to call out, the DLL hijacking in APM clients. Those, and so an authenticated attacker, someone with some kind of access to the target endpoint, so this is to the machines running the APM client software, may be able to inject malicious DLLs into the APM client or the APM client installer to change the operation of the APM client and or steal secrets or any of those kind of things. But again, this is an attacker who has some kind of access to the client PC to get the DLLs, the malicious DLLs on there, and then also has to either wait for a target user to do something or wait for an administrator on the target machine to do something in case of the installer. The last thing I would call out, the open redirect against APM. That allows an unauthenticated attacker to build an open redirect URI. So that is a URI that looks like it's going to an APM service that a legitimate user might expect to connect to, right? So their VPN endpoint or to their webtop on APM. Only that link will actually then redirect them to a malicious website that the attacker controls. So it might enable a phishing attack against users. So I think that one bears calling out. That's an unusual type for us. We don't see many of those, nor do we see too many DLL hijackings. As always, our recommendation is to install the latest releases. So if you're on these releases, you're in a good place because you have all of the available fixes, which means all of the fixes for this QSN. And again, I'll park that and I'll come back to it in a second. Of note, version 13, as I'm sure everybody watching is probably aware, has reached end of software development. So that won't be getting any fixes. If you are on version 13, you really need to look to move off version 13. You are not in a good place right now, and will be increasingly not in a good place going forwards. Now, if we just come back one slide and I'll talk about that researcher found DOS RCE, this one here. Like I said, it was reported to us by Rapid7, and we really appreciate them working with us and coordinating disclosure. They have a timeline for disclosure that did not align with our release cycle, unfortunately. So as with the previous Rapid7 disclosure, the fixes for that specific bug are in an engineering hotfix. Those engineering hotfixes this time, however, base builds are available on my.f5.com in the downloads section. So if you are going to upgrade to, say, 16.133, for example, if you are now planning your upgrade to 16.133, you can get 16.133 and the engineering hotfix, put both files on the target systems, and you can go directly to the engineering hotfix. One caveat to that is if you are already running an engineering hotfix, as with any upgrade process, if you're already running an engineering hotfix, probably anybody in this position is already aware, you need to make sure that the bugs in your EHF are actually resolved in the target version you're going to. And if they are not, if you are running an engineering hotfix, for example, let's say you're on 16.132 and you have an engineering hotfix already, and the bugs in your EHF are not fixed in 16.133, then you will need to get an engineering hotfix built with your bugs and the fix for that CVE in, and then jump directly to that. Like I say, though, it is iControl SOAP. It is authenticated for guest users and above. Likely most people have taken steps to restrict access to iControl SOAP, so it's on a management network that's accessible only to trusted users. in which case the impact is pretty limited. But obviously, take a look at the security advisory. It's got all of the relevant details and the mitigation steps, and you're then able to make your own determinations. So,
okay. And we've got the latest releases up here. If anyone needs to, reference those, of course, take a look. 1702, rather. If you're all the way up, you should be pretty good to go, as Aaron said, with most of this. So, again, I'd like to remind community, if you are hanging out, watching on whatever platform you're on, please let us know if you have any questions, and we'd love to answer anything that you might have. In the meantime, Aaron, I guess my question to you first would be, how would you characterize this, this QSN?
This QSN, I would say, is a relatively small QSN, 17 vulnerabilities, no security exposures. I think most people are going to find that they have either an effective mitigation strategy or aren't using the impacted features, or may be able to live with the risk. There's nothing in this QSN that is particularly terrible, shall we say. The main thing, really, there are no criticals and there are no remote code executions aside from the one theoretical one via iControl SOAP. There's no data plane remote code executions, for example, which would be the worst case scenario. I was just looking at the overview article, for which the link is in the chat messages, at everything we've got. And I think one thing I would say, I suppose, is that it looks like we have, there we go, thank you, a plethora of 7.5s, and there's a good reason for that. And also I would note that the one at the top there, the SOAP vulnerability that's an 8.5, is, if you actually go into that,
certainly
take a look at the article details.
Mouse fun. There we go.
If you scroll down just a tad to the affected versions and the CVSS score, it's an 8.5 for appliance mode. It's a 7.5 in standard deployment mode. So again, the overview has the worst case score, much like we said, in the worst case, it's a theoretical remote code execution. But for most deployments, that's going to be a 7.5, and it's effectively an authenticated denial of service against iControl SOAP. So it looks a little bit alarming maybe to see that there's an 8.5, but that's only for appliance mode.
And theoretical. So
and it's only a theoretical remote code execution. Yeah. It's it would take, I believe, a good deal of effort and research and knowledge of a target environment to even be able to start to turn it into an RCE. So the risk is pretty limited there. And the other reason, we'll get to the question that just popped in a second.
Yep.
The other reason we have a lot of 7.5s, part of moving to the QSN process, we've also moved to standardized language, and in an effort to make security advisories more easily understandable by repeating the same messaging, essentially. We've also got effectively a standardized score for denial of service vulnerability, and they basically always score out to 7.5. So that's why we end up with a slew of 7.5s, because the small variances in the actual vulnerability don't impact the score, and they all end up scoring out to the same thing. So the question there was,
what is the impact on K1754? 2533. So I've got that one up
So
right
this,
now. That's the WAF and ASM vulnerability.
that's right, yeah. So this is specific to Big IP Advanced WAF, Big IP ASM. And the impact here is a growth in memory consumption on the box. So it's unlikely to be an immediate crash. If you were, excuse me, if you were watching the resource consumption on your Big IP, say you use SNMP monitoring, you would see a memory consumption graph that's just up and to the right, a sort of a continual linear increase. My recollection of this one is that it is unlikely to be a particularly rapid increase in memory resource utilization. So you're probably going to get some warning rather than it being 3 seconds and the box falls over because it runs out of memory. I would also say that I think
no impact on
this
F5
has only
OS.
been seen once or twice. So yeah, it's an uncommon traffic pattern that you would not expect to see particularly, and therefore limited impact and exposure.
Excellent question, though, Practice Guru. We appreciate it. Thank you for asking. Anyone else have any more questions out there? Right now is probably the time to get it out. We're not seeing a whole lot at this moment. In my opinion, that might be because obviously we're not, so you're very welcome. We're not seeing any of the really really difficult vulnerabilities like we did a couple of years back. It's been pretty good, and I think I would hope that the QSN process is part of that as well. It lets us kind of manage things in a more orderly fashion, even when we have to coordinate with researchers like we do with Rapid7 on this SOAP one as well. Yeah,
and I would say so. A lot of introspection happened in F5 after we had a series of unauthenticated criticals right against the management interface, and that shook out a bunch of things, which were then resolved, and hopefully we shook out the fundamentals, so we won't run into those things again. I'd also like to say that coordinating with folks like Rapid7 was a breeze. Rapid7 are great to work with, and they care about doing the right thing for customers, for our customers, for the internet in general, and we really appreciate that.
Well, that's great to hear. I think at least when I was a pre-sales engineer, I kind of wondered how those sorts of relationships go. It's good to hear that we have a good relationship with the researcher community and people like Rapid7.
Yeah, we do.
So there is a follow-up from Practice Guru on vulnerabilities in XML lib issue. And as far as there being multiple vulnerabilities, I believe what he's saying is over time. So we have seen a couple of those come up in the past, couple QSNs, if I'm not mistaken. And any comments on that, or you think it's just sort of by chance?
So I would say, I would ask Practice Guru if he or she or they is referring to libxml vulnerabilities, because yes, there's a couple of third-party libraries used for XML parsing, and they typically impact excuse me, typically impact ASM, because that works with XML more than any of the rest of the Big IP line. Or if you're referring to something from this QSN that was specific to XML, because I don't recall one, but I'm just looking.
Well, and the other thing that we could do with this particular question, of course, is that, I could definitely reference, you can take this sort of question, obviously, to community.f5.com, right? That is DevCentral. And for any of these kinds of questions, or just even comments or chit chat regarding XML and resource utilization, or whatever else you might have with respect to F5 products and services out there, we typically can, have an answer for folks. So if we aren't able to answer this question for you today, Guru, please head on over to DevCentral and we'll try and take care of you there. With that, I'm not seeing really any other comments out there or questions. Any other final closing thoughts, Aaron, or you think we're pretty good for the day? It seems like it's fairly dealable for me. Oh, I do have one for you. What should our customers do if they do need a hotfix for the SOAP? Like what is the process for our customers there?
So yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but to reiterate, if you are running the base builds, so 17002 or 16133, for example, any of the latest fixed releases, you can download the engineering hotfix for the iControl SOAP issue from my.f5.com. If you go to the downloads page for the version that you are running, moving to, you'll see an engineering hotfix listed in the downloads page. Hold on, I may actually have that open in a tab that I can share, possibly, or not. Let me get it open. And I had it open a second ago. And we can share that with everybody.
Which one were you looking for?
So I am going to share.
And I'd like to take this moment to thank StreamYard for having an amazing product that lets us run these live streams as easily as we do. So we're just going to kind of share this up here for one last final thought.
Yep, if I can find the right window to share of the.
That's always the trouble, especially when you have a lot of browser tabs open, which I know we both do.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, now let me bring that in.
So actually, yeah, one point about this, as everybody is probably aware, we migrated recently to my F5 from the old Ask F5 for knowledge base articles and downloads.f5.com for downloads. So all of this looks a little new. But if you were to say you're running 16133 or want to run 16133, navigate to downloads, big IP product family, 16113 is the product version, and then you have 16133 is the latest release. Pick 16133, and you will see this is the 16133 base ISO just here, but there is also this hotfix. There'll be one of these engineering hotfixes for each of those latest fixed versions. 16133, 15181, 14153, and 17002. And if you look at the README, it will contain just a single bug ID. And that bug ID is the bug for the Rapid7 iControl SOAP issue. So if you're just moving to the base build and everything's good, just download the base build ISO, the engineering hotfix ISO. Remember, engineering hotfixes are partial ISOs. That's why they're only 135 meg. Put them both on the big IP and you can go straight to the hotfix. But if you are running, say, 16132 and you already have an engineering hotfix in place, you need to see if the bugs from your engineering hotfix are fixed in 16133. And if they are not, then you'll need a custom-built engineering hotfix. It'll be built on top of the engineering hotfix that contains the iControl SOAP issue, and it will also contain the bugs you already have fixed. That actually leads me on to one slightly unrelated topic, but it's related to my.f5.com. I'd like to point out and remind everybody, if you were relying on the RSS feeds that were available on support.f5.com previously, those RSS feeds are currently broken. So if you were using them to get vulnerability information, like QSNs, for example, you will be missing out right now. There is work underway to fix those RSS feeds, and I very much hope they'll be fixed for the May QSN. And we apologize for the inconvenience for this QSN, for them not being available, but they will be coming back.
Okay. Well, I guess on that note, since we seem to have no other questions or comments in the chat, thanks so much for coming on today, Aaron. I appreciate you as always, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you a lot as usual.
I am sure. No problem, Moby. Happy to be here. All right.
And thank you, F5 community, for tuning in to this live stream from DevCentral to cover F5's quarterly security notification for February 1st, 2023. As Aaron said, the next QSN will be on May 3rd, 2023. So don't forget to tune in. We will have a live stream available, as well as a coordinated release, if you will, of both our YouTube video for the solution, as well as our podcast, to be out for you at the exact same time as we release these, these vulnerabilities to the public. So thank you again. And as always, F5 community, have a great F5 day.